So, I have a question to present to you tonight. How do you get someone to open up? Now, some people might think that has to do with charisma, or maybe asking the right question, or complimenting somebody. Hey, nice shirt. But I've learned something different. To get someone to reveal themselves, they have to feel that they no longer need to protect themselves. Let me explain this a bit. I work in high intensity environments: lights, camera, action, time pressures, and tight budgets. So throughout the years, I've had to develop an approach that lets me help people reveal themselves, reveal those deep feelings, and actually visibly transform on camera. So now you might ask, if it wasn't those techniques, what is it? So we're going to start with understanding thinking and behavior. If we look at rigid thinking, we have to perform. We have to maintain an identity, and thus we have to self-protect. Now, if we have a certain fluidity in our thinking, we can meet people where they are. We can be honest. We don't have to perform anymore. And that's what the power of feeling seen is. It begins with seeing ourselves honestly, so that we no longer have to act normal, we can be normal. And that requires a certain honesty in us, right? So, where are the origins of where this started? Well, as a documentary filmmaker, I have one shot. I have one shot only to get all those honest, raw emotions and stories on camera. And a lot of people coming in, they know that that camera, it adds about 10 pounds to their appearance. And it's another 10 times the scrutiny on every word, every twitch, and every movement. And it's also a very foreign environment that we're asking them to look real in. So how can I make them comfortable enough to be real with me? I mean, do I give them another pillow, maybe some cough drops or water? But then that's when I realized I actually wasn't asking the right question. The right question is, how do I make them feel safe enough to be real with me? Now, how does this work with a situation where, let's say I'm asking you to be interviewed? So we have about 10, 15 minutes before we start the interview. And so I like to tell people this is a little bit like speed dating, but with a lot more at stake than the second date. So we've got lights, we've got a camera, we've got a crew milling around. And honestly, they're just looking at their equipment. They're actually slightly bored at what you might even say. So you come in with all this energy in you. You're ready to tell that story, and you talk in front of the camera the best that you can. And that energy you came in with starts to shrink a little. So now you're in that seat, and I say, we're going to have an interview now. Are you ready? Those cameras, right? We have the cameras ready. We're going to go on. Poof! You might have forgotten your name at that moment because you look like a deer caught in headlights. There is no amount of comfort or safety I can make you feel so that you will be revealing yourself to me. You'll be acting normal. So that's when I had to think about, how am I going to develop an approach that comes before the interview? So what I learned was, first I had to stop hiding myself. I had to stop playing the role of an interviewer and step into that zone of discomfort that my subject was in. I would call out that discomfort. You know, I recognize that it's uncomfortable. It's a bit nerve-wracking with all these cameras and lights. So what I ask you to do is to help me reframe those questions. Let me reframe those questions so I can help you be the best that you can be, so that I can support you through this process, and that we can also repeat. I will ask you again the questions so that you can repeat and be the best that you can be on the camera. And you see what I did there? It became a collaboration. And something extraordinary happens when I start doing that. It went from being an interview to being a conversation between two people who were equally vulnerable. And so it went from acting normal to being normal. And so this is when movie magic happens, is then we filmmakers are now allowed in to capture all those things that make human beings so fascinating, all those stories, all those emotions, all those insights. Now, movie magic. How did that really happen? First, vulnerability. I was vulnerable, and others sense that vulnerability too. And that means they no longer had to perform. What else? Non-judgment. I stopped judging my own performance, and I stopped judging others as well. And what did that allow? That allowed us to repeat the questions and answers and insights, and allowed us to iterate so that that is where the growth happens. We can now bring other ideas to the forefront. And three, honesty. Honesty is contagious. Honesty spreads, and that honesty allows us to drop that mantle or costume. So, if that's the case, what does that mean in a society that's rigid? When a society is rigid, does that mean that we all have to perform? Well, let's try an experiment tonight. We're going to do an exercise that I call speed date yourself. Now, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and you don't have to answer. This is not show and tell. This is not about self-improvement. This is about self-recognition. So, are you ready? Yeah. Okay. So 1, what is it that you hide in you that you hope no one here tonight finds out about you? Maybe you bought a car for impressing that new girlfriend and you actually can't afford it. Maybe you have a job, a position, a salary that you might feel that you're actually not qualified for. Hold that discomfort. 2, what is it about you that makes you sparkle? What is it about you that you would shoot your hand up in the air and say, yes, let me show you how to do it? Because you know that you do it better than anyone else. And you're so happy to talk about it, you just can't wait until someone brings it up. What is it that makes you glow? And now 3. Look around the room. Really, look around. Look at other people here. Do you think they might have something they want to hide from others tonight? Do you think they have something that makes them sparkle, make them glow, and they can't wait? They hope you are going to ask them about it. So I hope you take these thoughts and feelings to your next conversation. I hope you notice the quality of the conversation when you keep in mind that each of us hold that feeling of shame, pride, and empathy. And so what is that quality of conversation then if we all stop pretending? Do you think that quality of conversation depends on what you say? You see, the quality of a conversation rarely depends solely on the intelligence of the people talking. It's really dependent on how safe people feel when being imperfect with you. And that's when movie magic happens. Movie magic happens when all of us are able to be fluid and speaking with each other at a different level. So now, authenticity, right? Is authenticity represented by confidence? I don't think so. I think authenticity is a certain tolerance for imperfection, is an acceptance of the complications and contradictions we each have. And again, authenticity is an honesty to have with ourselves and with others. Like my pants? Kind of cute, right? You see, I picked these pants because they hide knees that have been shaking for the last 10 minutes. I have to admit, I have a deep, deep fear of public speaking. And I'm sure quite a few of you may have that as well. I remember the exact moment when it started. It was my eighth grade valedictorian speech. I probably swallowed half the words and coughed up the other half. And I couldn't wait to get off the stage and run to my family and say, hey, I'm done. And when I ran over to them, my dad said he was ashamed of me and that I was terrible. And so for decades after that, it was very hard for me to speak to people or speak to a group bigger than 4 people. And you know what? I wish I knew then what I know now. It's that he was just a product of a rigid system. It's a rigid system that assumes what success looks like. And he had projected all his fears and hopes and dreams on a 13-year-old who couldn't possibly carry the weight of those expectations that he had for himself. So when you look at a rigid society that requires us to perform and requires us to be an identity that we may not really be, and if we drop that performance and we are honest and we meet people where they are, wherever it is, maybe here, but it's actually really also here, then that's when movie magic happens in our own lives. So, hey, Dad, you see what I did? I just gave a TEDx talk. Thank you.